So today, the title of today is Make the Dark Night Shine, Reflections on Anatta, Emptiness, and our embeddedness in this amazing web of intelligence we call planet Earth. Bit of a long title. And so, the insight into anatta or emptiness or not self is, a central insight, liberating insight, which the Buddha was the first, human being to speak about on this planet. About like 2,500 years ago, in Iron Age India, it was a new way of speaking about a practice which the Buddha brought with that concept of anatta, or not self. No one before him, spoke in that way. Lots of other teachers also taught about impermanence, even, in Greece. Heraclitus, spoke about impermanence, but the insight into not self was not yet communicated by anyone. And, that insight is really central in the Buddha's teaching in terms of, freeing the mind from ignorance and seeing, what is really there. And what we see is not that there's nothing there, but we see conditionality. And, I brought a quote from the Buddha. He says, "I do not say that things exist or do not exist. I teach dependent origination." And if we are looking, into the screen, we can see each other. So we do exist, but we do not exist in the way we think we exist. We are not existing as separate entities, but we are existing as processes, which are deeply interconnected with each other, and there's no real separation. And so, if we're just trusting the sense organs like the eyes, then what we see, we appear to be different. We appear to be separate. But then, if we go deeper into it through developing those 7 factors of awakening, I was guiding us in the meditation, which are natural qualities of the mind, which can be trained. Through meditation practice, those natural qualities of the mind can be, made more and more powerful, and the mind gets more and more sensitized. So it's more and more capable to see into the depths, to see through assumptions. And, this assumption, this web of assumptions, which ignorance is, throwing over all of our experiences, to break through that web of assumptions or to dissolve that web of assumptions slowly but surely, that's what we are after in the practice. And that's why we are training our minds. And that's why we are working on developing those 7 factors of awakening to the utmost potential, so that we can see that which is hidden in plain sight for the untrained mind. And then, through increasing training of the mind, suddenly, we start to see conditionality, we start to see connections we didn't see before. And, they have always been there, they've always been in operation, but we just couldn't really see it because our minds weren't fine-tuned enough. And through the practice, in particular, through training those 7 factors of awakening, the mind is suddenly, seeing more and more. And then, when the conditions are right, when the conditions are ripe, then breakthroughs can happen. And, in the Pali canon, in the early Buddhist teachings, those, different breakthroughs are kind of spoken about as the 4 stages of awakening. The first one is stream entry, or also called, Sotapanna in the Pali language. And then there is 3 more. The next one is Sakadagami, which is what's called the once returner, and then Anagami, non-returner, and Arahant, the fully awakened one. And every time, when such a breakthrough happens, then the mind, sees into the depths of reality, like seeing to the bottom of the ocean for a moment, the waters are parting, and for a moment we can see the bottom of the ocean, and then the water comes back again. But we have seen clearly, even for one moment, and once that has happened, we cannot forget that. And this would be, one of those 4 stages. And then the mind adapts to what it has seen. And by fine-tuning those 7 factors of awakening, we basically putting the causes and conditions in place that this deep seeing can happen when the time is ripe for it. And in the scriptures, that is described as the Dhamma eye arises in an individual. When that individual for one moment sees the Dhamma very clearly. And in the scriptures, even children, so child monks like the Buddha's son Rahula, had realized those 4 stages of awakening. So it's not an intellectual challenge, really. I mean, we need to understand the instructions enough, but they are not that complicated, actually. So it's a different quality of the mind which needs to be honed, through the practice. And I think, the most important ingredient for that is that our meditation practice and our daily lives, they need to go in the same direction. In whatever, way that works for the individual. So we need to leave what we have seen in the meditation. We need to increasingly leave from that place. Then, what we have seen will be integrated into our being, into our bodies, into our minds, into the way we eat, into the way we walk, into the way we shop, into the way we speak, everything. That's really so important, to live what we know to be true. And for that, we need to have courage and some, amount of faith, but not blind faith, but, having the courage to embody the Dhamma in our daily lives. And that is also very important in that context would be, for example, what it's called the 5 precepts, or at least some of the precepts, how many one can master, to just slowly, kind of more and more leave those as well, because they are really a very good basis for stilling the mind and bringing some sense of peace into our lives, and at the same time also giving the gift of fearlessness. The precept is also a form of dana, really. To live from that place is giving the gift of fearlessness to the world, a beautiful gift. And at the same time, giving that also to ourselves. And, in that way, we are walking our talk, and our life becomes increasingly more and more coherent with what we know to be true. And through that, this coherence, the data flow, between us and the world becomes more and more kind of consolidated, and we can, integrate that into our form, information, what we know to be true, to let that inform us, which means, let that enter our form and our life. And then our life grows, we can allow more and more world into our being. We are less and less, distracting ourselves and defending ourselves. But we have more and more the courage to hold steady, with that which is sometimes hard to, understand, or hard to bridge, but we have the capacity, to just open and allow this process to just take place without interfering, without nailing it down, without interrupting. By, again and again coming back to what we know from practice and remembering that. And adjusting our lives, step by step, so that our insights are reflected in our daily choices. And, we're setting clearer and clearer priorities, because we see how much, we are in constant exchange, with everything and everyone, and with the environment through the way we exist, through eating and drinking and breathing and crying and sweating and everything. We are in constant exchange with everything else. We are not just independent entities. So that, if we allow those insights to inform us, then through those choices, our lives, become more and more coherent, and it becomes easier to open to our experience, because we feel more grounded, we feel more resourced, and we feel less threatened, because there's a sense of enrichment and a sense of being part of something much bigger than ourselves, which there's an intelligent emptiness, an intelligent universe, or whatever we want to call it, or the Dhamma. We can call it Dhammakaya, or Kuan-Yin, or Prajnaparamita, all of the many, many names, that which cannot be named has been called. And through that, coherence and fine-tuning of our capacities, we can more and more participate in that intelligence, which, these days, there's a lot speaking about emergence, which is leaning into that intelligence, which cannot be named. It's not a being. It's not like any kind of a father figure or a mother figure, but it cannot be named, but it is definitely there. And through the, training our minds, we can open to that. Through this, gradual refinement of our own tools, we can participate in that intelligence. And I think, that's something, which I find very reassuring, really. And more, there is a sense of contentment and interest and trust, which comes through that. And this is a gradual refinement, of our, what we call our innate drive for happiness. We all want to be happy. We all want to be kind of safe. We all want to know what we are doing. And in the beginning, when we are not yet practicing, there's all kinds of external things we think we're going to get that happiness from. But, the more we are practicing and seeing clearly, the more we adjust this what we are looking for, because we are there's something much more, let's call it safe, to make a connection with. And that's this safety comes from having, the capacity to be able to respond from this deep inner knowing, which we can access through practice, over time, if we cultivate those 7 factors of awakening. And we can say, that all 3 schools of Buddhism, they all are exactly doing the same thing. They all are working and offering, many, many different practices and many different systems of philosophy and so on, to encourage us to develop those 7 factors of awakening, so that we can tap into that much higher intelligence, which is innate in the Dhamma, or nature. Dhamma means nature. And for example, in the Thai language, the word natural is Dhammachat. So that's part of the Thai language, and probably other Asian languages as well. And, if we are practicing in that way and becoming more and more conscious, that we are part of nature and not kind of in control or masters of nature, then, what results from that is like also increasing humility, and increasing interest in really understanding what is going on, especially at these times, on our planet, where we are waking up to the fact, that it looks like we are driving ourselves into extinction with the way we live and the way we organize ourselves. It's all really very, very unsuccessful, really. And so for me, what's going on the planet is not like a crisis of the earth. We don't need to rescue the planet or anything like this, but I see it more, it's a crisis for us, for our species. It's a crisis of humility, which, a crisis of arrogance, which comes from ignorance, really, like young children, like when they are in that age, where they want to have everything exactly the way they want it, and if they don't, then they throw a tantrum or something like that. We are somehow a little bit like that, very immature, and really, we really need to come back to the ground, come back down. And the word humility and humus have the same root. And I think that's very interesting, because that's exactly what we are having to do as a species now. We need to come back to the ground, back to the earth, where we are coming from, really. And, try and doing what we can to overcome that, that deep conditioning we have about us and our centrality about everything, our sciences, everything is always in relationship to how can everything serve us, us, our species. How can everyone, all the animals, all the plants, all the waters, everything is always in relationship to us. And we need to unlearn that. And that's kind of very difficult thing to do, I think, because it's so deep. And, and this kind of a practice, which we are, having the good fortune to have come in contact with can really support us in that, because that insight, you know, into emptiness, into anattā is exactly, you know, what's needed. It's the insight which we need, not only in order to, you know, awaken fully and step out of samsara, if that's what we want, or, you know, continue to come back as bodhisattvas. But we also need that in order to continue, you know, to live here. It's all interconnected, really. So it's a waking up and a growing up. You know, waking up in the sense of you know, liberating ourselves from the wheel of becoming or samsara, and growing up, you know, understanding that we are part of the planet. We are not separate. We are not masters. Waking up from that dream. And so it makes, you know, makes so much sense these days to really make a lot out of our practice, really take that serious, because I think without a practice, it would be really so much more scary these days, because it looks pretty hopeless, you know, if we don't really seriously investigate, you know, everything which brought us to this point. So I think, you know, that training our mind so that it has the capacity to see deeper and start really, you know, questioning a lot of assumptions which we have been operating under, and which, you know, our culture, mainstream culture, operates under, which is all about, you know, consuming and so on and so forth, trying to, you know, trying to control nature. And nature is kind of, you know, speaking back to us louder and louder and louder. And it's still, you know, not really you know, we haven't really kind of come to an agreement, you know, as people, you know, to make some fundamental changes. And so I think, you know, for us to practice and really look into those questions, you know, which are becoming bigger and bigger these days, is a great service, you know, we can do to our own species, really, because, you know, whoever is willing, you know, to look at those things and live from that place can have a ripple effect on everyone around. You know, we don't need to go around and convince people, but just the way we are, the way we live, the choices we make, what we eat, how we go on a holiday, all of those things, it can ripple out, and it will be seen by others. So, you know, I think that can be a great benefit, you know, for ourselves, and also for all of those who meet us and who we touch their lives. And at the same time, it is a powerful way, you know, of integrating practice into our being. So it's a best investment ever made, I think. And particularly, you know, doing it as a community makes the whole thing so much more possible, because it's very difficult to do it alone. And it's not, you know, through forcing anything, but it's just through adding something, you know, adding mindfulness, adding interest, adding energy into the practice. And then it's a natural process, you know, which starts to kick in. And then through that natural process, you know, those 7 factors of awakening, they like a spiral, you know, they go deeper and deeper and deeper. And through that deeper seeing, certain things just drop away, you know. Like when you would like to go, you know, with a balloon, you need to drop a sandbags, you know, so you slowly have a bigger vista, have a greater perspective on things. That's what happens, you know, and not by kind of disconnecting, but just by having, seeing the bigger context. Staying connected, you know, to our roots, and at the same time, seeing deeper and wider how things are interdependent and how we are actually a part of the planet. Even, you know, we don't have roots like a tree, but we have energetic roots into the planet. You know, through our ancestors, not only our human ancestors, but our animal ancestors, you know, the great apes, we are coming from that same root. And then our plant ancestors, our mineral ancestors, we are deeply, deeply rooted in this planet. We are the planet. And if we cultivate those factors of awakening, then we'll be able to, you know, to really participate in that information which is coming through. Information, you know, coming into our formation. And then we are living from that place. And there's often, you know, the speaking about the immune system of the planet. So it's like, you know, those who have trained those capacities, who can hear what is being communicated, they can be part of that immune system. And then, you know, that ripples out. And I think that's a great, for me, that is a great motivation, you know, for practice, not only for myself, but also, you know, through that benefiting the whole huge process which we call planet Earth. And then, you know, the planet is in the cosmos. It's an amazing way of, you know, feeling connected with something so vast, and you know, surrendering to that intelligence by honing our and fine-tuning our tools, which we have got, you know, by just by virtue of being a human being. And then, you know, allowing life to speak for itself rather than us, you know, constantly assuming what is what, and writing, you know, a million books about it, and then things are really not really responding in that way. So allowing life to speak for itself and working on our own capacity to listen to that, what is being said. That's what it's all about, I think. And, you know, this, the name of our species, Homo sapiens, comes from the Latin word sapere, which means to taste. In order to really know, you know, we need how honey tastes. We need to take a spoon of honey and eat it, because if somebody tries to describe it, we're never going to really get it. And the same, you know, with that intelligence, which is so much vaster than what the human mind can think out. This is an intelligence we also need to participate through tasting it, through practicing and making our equipment fine-tuned enough so it can taste. It can get that transmission, really. And I wanted to maybe end my talk with a poem. Where I took the title for the talk from and it's a book. It's called The First Free Women by a friend of me, Matti Weingast, and it's inspired by the original poems of the early Buddhist nuns. And this poem is called Punna, full. Fill yourself with the Dhamma. When you are as full as the full moon, burst open. Make the dark night shine. And I think, collectively we are somehow in a dark night, I feel. And if we equip ourselves with the Dhamma, even, the darkest of nights can shine because it displays all of the same qualities as all other phenomena. Impermanence, instability, and emptiness. And everything, every phenomena whatsoever can teach us about the Dhamma. And, we do have the instructions. We can use that, to stabilize ourselves so that we can really listen deeply and then respond from that place of listening. Because the Dhamma is responding. That's one of the qualities, And whoever, knocks on the door will get an answer. That's not only, said in a Buddhism, in all different systems, of faith or wisdom teachings speak about, if there's an interest, if there is a real application, the answer will come.